very sensitive subject now, suicide, one of the biggest killers in the country. Every year, around 200 of those who end their lives are children.
Molly Russell was just 14 years old when she took her own life in 2017, and her father believes that social media played a part in his daughter's death after it was revealed that Molly had viewed thousands of images about self-harm and suicide online.
And Molly's father, Ian, joins us in the studio this morning. I mean, first, Ian, I'm still heartbroken for you, and it must be very difficult for you to watch those pictures, although also a moment of reflection for you on the wonderfulness of your daughter.
Oh, Molly was one of the most amazing people I've ever met, let alone one of the most amazing. I'm lucky we've got 3 wonderful daughters, but we've got a fantastic family, and it's, of course, painful to think back and remember what's happened to Molly. But it does get easier with time. It can catch you out, grief, but it does get easier with time. And so in that sense, I'm lucky. I mean, last night, just by chance, I was talking to another family, another set of bereaved parents who'd also lost a 14-year-old only a couple of months ago to suicide. And that reminds you that that's why it's important to speak out and to raise awareness and to do something to stop this happening, because it happens far too frequently.
One of the issues is what Molly was looking at. What were those sites? What was the material that you think might have affected her state of mind?
Well, the sites she accessed were just ordinary sites that most teenagers would access. So they were the Instagrams, the Pinterests, and other sites such as Snapchat, for example. And don't panic, but I brought with me some of the posts that Molly saw, and I've kept them in an envelope because I wouldn't want you to see them without a warning, and I wouldn't want viewers to see them. And in fact, I know on television you've got a responsibility and you have to abide by regulations to stop posts like the posts in that envelope being seen.
And if they can't be shown on television, why are they available online?
That's exactly the point. These posts, in fact, the 3 posts in there aren't graphic. They're not horrendous, the worst posts that we've seen, that Molly had seen and saw and liked and saved. They are posts that are actually probably legal, but they're terribly depressing and encourage depression, and some might encourage self-harm and suicide as well.
There's worse out there as well, isn't there?
There's some very, very dreadful sites. So I suspect that Molly found herself feeling mentally unwell. As a 14-year-old, she didn't quite know what to do with it. And like many 14-year-olds, she maybe reached out to the internet for help. And I hope that she found some help there. But in doing so, she was also connected to these posts, and that led her down a path that got ever darker and ever more dangerous.
And getting that balance between somebody posting something and that being the route to help, and then somebody posting things that then get them pushed more stuff that takes them to a bad place. And, you know, I've lost a cousin to suicide, and that was 21 years ago now, and there's not a day I don't think about it. So what it is like with a daughter, I just don't know. I work, as you know, with the Suicide Trust, the Maytree. And I'd also been talking to Owen Paterson, the Conservative MP who lost his wife to suicide, and, like you, is now absolutely determined to do more and more to prevent suicide in the future. And he discovered, the police discovered with his wife, she'd been looking at these sort of suicide sites. I don't even want to say what they are and what they do, but she'd been looking at them. And he's leading a delegation tomorrow, which I'm going to be part of as well, to DCMS to try to get something done on this in the online harms bill. Now, I know he would want to work with you on that, and so I just want to know what you would like to see in the online harms bill.
Well, the online harms bill, firstly, I believe that one of the 25 bills that's going to be in the Queen's speech today will be the online harms bill. So that's going to be introduced to Parliament, and I understand imminently, maybe this week, for example, which is good news because the ONS stats show that there are 4 school-aged children who end their life by suicide every week. So time is of the essence. And if you widen that beyond children and include people like Owen's wife and others, suicide is one of the biggest killers in the country, so it needs to happen quickly. I think what needs to happen is a focus for the tech companies, a refocus for the tech companies. They need to have their corporate culture changed. For 15, 16 years they've existed, and they need to just do things differently. They've never needed to be challenged. They didn't set themselves up to do harm. In fact, they do an awful lot of good as well.
Are they changing anything for the better?
The platforms have changed, but they speak good words, and they have changed. But I think they could change an awful lot quicker and an awful lot faster, because the sort of content that Molly was exposed to is still available online, and it's not too difficult to find.
I just find it utterly shocking. I have to admit, yesterday, because I knew we were going to be talking to you, I did have a look to see how easy it was to access some of this material. And apart from I'm sure they have taken a lot down. Obviously, I don't know what they've taken down because that's no longer available. There is an obstacle in that a page comes up saying, do you need help? Or do you want to carry on looking at the posts you're trying to access? And you can literally just click on, what I'd like you to show the posts. It does seem remarkable that a lot of this material has just not been withdrawn altogether.
It's extraordinary. It's absolutely extraordinary. When we first discovered this material after Molly's death, we reported it to the platforms and expected it to be taken down, almost to be thanked for pointing out these things.
You said it was within the guidelines.
Within the guidelines, so it wasn't taken down. So,
a lot of parents want some help to encourage their children to get off their phones. You know, there's a sort of epidemic of our children being addicted to screens, and that's not good for their physical health, apart from anything else. What can you do to help parents in order to encourage their children to put their phones down? Because they're sort of almost attached to their hands now, aren't they?
It's part of modern life, and the difference between the parents' generation and the children's generation is huge. So it's a very hard thing, because children have now grown up with access to technology and phones 24/7 almost. It's there from a very early age. But talk as a family, have meal times when you don't have your phones with you, go out for walks, do some physical exercise, and the sort of mindfulness techniques that Goldie was talking about earlier, they're really useful to do as well.
And Ian, can I ask you as well, why is the inquest process taking so long?
We're really lucky that we've got a coroner who seems as determined to find out as much as possible.
They're really going into it?
So they're really going into it. They've asked the tech platforms to provide evidence to the inquiry. So they're really looking into what might be behind Molly's mental problems that led to her death. And by doing so, they hope to learn and prevent the future such tragedies as well.
And we're talking to Matt Hancock later, and I know that one of the things I think you've been arguing for is for the law to be changed so that actually these sites can report to the emergency services in the way that they already can in America, where they think they've actually saved some lives, prevented some suicides. Is that something that you're pushing for in the online harms bill?
I think so. I think those sort of changes are really important, and also the introduction of criminal liabilities for senior tech managers, because that's the sort of thing that will focus minds. And in the meantime, while that's all happening, because that will take time, it's really important that people know where to find help if they need to find help, if they've got concerns about someone, or if you're one of the individuals that is suffering, you need to know where to go for help. So that's a really important thing. And there are websites like the Molly Rose Foundation website that direct people to that. And we've teamed up with a New zealand charity who run a Find a Helpline service that helps you, because there are thousands of helplines, and the Find a Helpline service has 1,600 certified helplines that you can filter. So if you've got an eating disorder problem or a self-harm problem, you can make that list shorter and hopefully get yourself to support more easily and more quickly.
Well, I know that Owen Patterson, who's for the Rose Patterson Trust, I know he's desperate to sit down and talk to you about what you can do together, so I hope we can make that happen.
I'd love to chat to him.
Ian, thank you so much. Just tell us a little bit more about Molly and how you remember her particularly.
Molly was one of the most caring people that I've ever known. She couldn't do enough to help other people. And she loved and laughed. And I will remember her smile and I'll remember her positivity. And that will always be with me.
That's a lovely way to remember her. Thank you, Ian. It's a really, really important issue. Thank you so much for coming in to talk to us this morning.
Thank you.
Pinterest have told us they've built new technologies that automatically identify and hide self-harm content. They've seen an 80% drop in posts that violate their self-harm policy since April 2019. Instagram said, we've never allowed people to promote or glorify suicide or self-harm on our platforms, and have updated our policies to ban even more content